1998 master plan, we note that it also is consistent in terms of promoting new development and redevelopment that is consistent and compatible with existing settlement patterns and directing new growth to environmentally suitable areas with existing infrastructure. And I will also note that it is consistent with the state development and redevelopment plan because this is a planning area 1 where redevelopment of existing sites is encouraged. And with that, I'll take any questions anyone might have.
Question from the board? Questions from the public? Okay. You'd like to sum up, or you finished?
Well, that covers it. We tried to distill the redevelopment plan into a handful of slides, but obviously if anyone wants to get into the weeds on anything, happy to answer them, but that's about it.
Okay. Ask the board for a motion to approve Liberty Avenue redevelopment to be referred to the Township Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
James Johnson,
Yes.
Michael Cohen,
Yes.
Jeffrey East,
Yes.
Stephen Lee,
Yes.
Alfred Miller,
Yes.
Patty Frazier, James Bowser,
Yes.
Joseph Rain,
Yes.
Aklima Khan.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Mr. Hale? I understand we're doing a redo on creative property management?
Yes.
And what I'd like to do, I'm assuming some of the crowd is here for your presentation. I just want to share the form of order of the way things we do here so there's no confusion. What happens here is the attorney, Mr. Hale, will call a witness. The witness will be sworn in to tell the truth. Mr. Hale will ask him some questions and the witness will make a presentation. After that's done as a form of order, the board will be given the opportunity to ask the witness for questions. After that, the public will be asked to give questions to the witness. It's a Q&A only. You'll have plenty of time to make whatever comments you want to make after the witnesses have been called, and that's fine, and the board will certainly consider it. The last time we met here, I believe it was April, Mr. Hale?
I believe
April
so.
Meeting. We had quite a few residents who came to the meeting. Some of them had very legitimate questions on the application, and frankly, some of them had some very unrelevant questions on the application. We cannot, when it comes to things like, and I'll give you an example, we had a witness, or one of the residents asked about illegal aliens and people running around with no clothes on and things like that. We can't consider that. It has to be, that's really irrelevant, and also we can't consider it because we are bound by federal and state housing laws. But if you have any relevant questions on the actual application itself, you're more than welcome to ask questions on it. But as far as anything else about those two topics that I just mentioned, then the board cannot, by law, consider it. Okay? Mr. Hill, you like to call?
Yes, great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We were here a couple of months ago, presented the executive director of Community Access Unlimited, 501c3, that has throughout Union County numerous community residences, presented testimony from our architect as the design of the house, and also our engineer took us through the site plan. We hadn't gotten to our planner yet, but let me just again recap and exactly what you've indicated, Mr. Chairman. We're here for a community residence, and under state statute, and I'll paraphrase, community residence for persons with developmental disabilities shall be a permitted use in all residential districts of a municipality, and the requirements therefore shall be the same as for single-family dwelling units within such districts. So we're governed by, it's a permitted use, it's mandated by statute, just as you've indicated, and we are bound by single-family residential standards. In essence, as you've indicated, Mr. Chairman, we're here because we're seeking relief, minor relief we consider, for two variances. One is the setback, and you'll hear from our professionals. We want the setback because it'll provide area where, again, we have people with disabilities, so there may be a vehicle where a wheelchair has to get out, and you'll hear from our engineer that by pushing the homes back, it provides an area where it's flatter and they can do it without ramps and the like. So it provides that. And the steep slope is more of a technical, our engineer and our planner will touch on that, but we've investigated, there's nowhere on this lot that it could be utilized without some steep slopes disturbance, and we're minimizing that. So from the last hearing, what we did, there was concern regarding the front yard fence. So I think we indicated at the hearing we're going to withdraw our request for that. So revised plans were submitted to eliminate that front yard fence. And then the other was, there was concern about buffering and landscaping. Again, we're bound to single-family residential standards, but we've agreed in the revised plans, and I'll recall our engineer to touch on the additional landscaping that was provided. So, again, we're here before this board seeking relief, and again, we consider it minor for the setback, and then the deviation for the steep slope. But again, even if it was front, back, wherever, we're going to need deviation from steep slope, and we'll have, again, adequate justification for that.
Thank you,
So-
Mr. Aiello. How many witnesses do you plan on calling?
We'll recall Mr. Bocci, our engineer, and Nicholas Graviano, our professional planner.
Sounds-
Potter Architects are here, but I will also add that the house complies with all bulk standards. We don't need any deviations for impervious coverage, height, setbacks, other than the front yard setback. I mean, we don't encroach on any front too close to the street, too close to the back, too close to the sides. We maintain all of those.
Thank you, Mr. Aiello. And I
Okay, so
understand that there was a community outreach.
Yes, we
At the
did.
next-
After the last meeting, we had a community outreach meeting over at the Knights of Columbus. There we got into, just so people would, if they hadn't heard of community access and the community residents throughout the county, we held that at the Knights of Columbus. We had members of community access there, along with some of the residents and other, and they explained how they work in the community, some work at different places throughout the county. So it was a nice event.
Okay, you call your first witness.
Okay,
please.
so I'd like to recall Mr. Joseph Bocci.
Mr. Bocci, would you recite your name for the record, please?
Joseph Bacci, B-A-C-H-I.
Thank you. Can we swear in the witness, please?
Mr. Bocci, do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And Mr. Bocci, I know you were previously sworn and qualified, but again, if you briefly give your credentials to the board.
Sure. 2012 graduate of Rutgers University with a BS in civil engineering. Been licensed since 2017 as a professional civil engineer. My license is in good standing, active. I've appeared before this board a number of times and many other boards throughout the state.
I would offer Mr. Bocci as a professional engineer.
So ordered.
Okay, great. So, Mr. Bocci, obviously you're well familiar with this project. If you could highlight for the board the revisions that were made to the plans, focusing on the elimination of the front yard fence and the additional landscaping. And I think you did want to then touch on the, from an engineering standpoint, the relief for the setback and the steep slope.
Yes, we'll do. Is there a pin required? Yeah. But I think it got logged out, or?
Thanks.
So I'll go through the changes we made on this plan. Previously went through the whole site plan, as Mr. Hale mentioned. So I'm just going to highlight the changes that were submitted to the board.
And what you have up there, I assume, is the latest version that was in fact submitted in connection with the application.
Yeah, these were revised, July 12th, 2024. So I'm going to jump to sheet 2, which is our revised site plan. As Mr. Hale indicated, we did, we saw the board engineer's comments and general, comments, sorry, from the public. This isn't working too great. And I'll direct you to the bottom left here. We have our landscaping plan. I know that was one of the concerns. The number of trees being removed and buffering of the neighbors. So we do have quite a few just typical foundation plants around the building. We're also proposing a number of trees along the driveway here. So it doesn't show the full picture. We also are proposing a number of trees along the property line. Bear with me for a second.
I think that's a touch screen too.
Apologies. So we do have a number of trees being, just to give you a reference point, trees in this area on the north and to the south here, along with the foundation plantings. We did remove the proposed fence in the front yard. We are still seeking relief for the 100-foot front yard setback. As Mr. Hale touched on, you can see we have this drop-off area here. So setting the house back further and elongating the driveway allows for room of this drop-off area. Likewise, we have, from the sidewalk, we have a nice 5% maximum slope on this walkway coming to the house. If we were to put the house at the 25-foot yard setback up here, we would need fully compliant ADA ramps that would include railings. We just don't think that would be aesthetically pleasing. So pushing it back allows us to lower the slope of the ramp, not require handrails. And that way it's just, I think, more aesthetically pleasing than having these metal railings right in the front yard at 25 feet or a little bit closer in front of the house. Regarding the steep slopes, I'll go to the survey, which is has not been revised. But you can see here on the survey, the steep slopes really exist on the northern portion and then cut across the site here. So there would effectively be no possible way to develop anything on this site, whether it was, single-family house, anything, could not be developed on this site because the steep slopes come across the site here. So you would have to disturb them to develop anything there. And I think there's justification in the ordinance regarding unnecessary hardships for the owners. If you're kind of exempt from the being prohibited from developing on the steep slopes if it provides that hardship there. So it would have to remain an empty lot without disturbing them. I think that really covers the changes we
Okay.
had.
Right. Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions at this time.
Question from the board?
Mr. Boschi, where's the FDC going to be for these homes? Fire department connection, is that the way I ask you, or is Mr. Hale for that? Fire department connection, where's that for the
I
sprinkler
think
system?
the architect might
Yeah.
have a better
Well,
idea on
Mr.
that.
Potter punted that away last time.
Yeah.
Mr. Potter punted that.
Wherever we'll work with fire, wherever
Okay.
they feel it's most accessible,
Okay.
certainly comply with any requirements.
Okay.
Yeah, well said.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman?
I have a question. How many staff will be employed here, and is there parking for the staff on site and not on the streets?
There's parking in the rear. Let me zoom in here. So there's 4 spaces in the rear. There's also, plenty of room within the driveway as additional parking as needed. But in the last meeting, Steve, I forget how many employees total it was, but there was adequate
Yeah.
parking.
We wanted to make sure there was adequate parking on site.
So I know that there's those 4 spaces. And I want to say it's 2 to 3 staff maximum, and the residents don't drive.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, so you talked about the tree coverage and the trees that are going to be planted. One of the concerns is sound buffering with the Garden State Parkway, which abuts the rear of the property. Would it be possible to plant additional trees along the property line, perhaps to a depth of 10 feet or so, to provide an additional sound buffer?
In the rear?
Yes.
I think we can comply with that. There are existing trees back there, but we can plant additional trees. If you maybe make that subject to your engineer's review.
Is there, and I apologize, I did review the plans, but is there going to be a fence along the property line as well?
No fence proposed,
Okay.
just landscaping. And there's a fence, I misspoke.
On the side yard?
Yes, yes,
What
on the side
what
yard.
about at the back?
Yes, and in the rear, I'm sorry, there's a fence to delineate the wetlands, that's what it is.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
So it really just protects the wetlands back there. We obviously can't plant trees back there without going through all the hoops and ladders of NJDEP approvals. So this area, that's really, I will say though, you're in line with the house here. So I think that actually provides some sound barrier itself for the residents, you know, at least on this side of the street. I would say we'll plant trees to the extent practical. Most of the yard, there wouldn't be a problem back here.
And that grid is a drainage basin?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'd be far enough away from that.
Any other questions from the board?
Just a couple questions, just to follow up on the trees in particular in your landscaping plan. Actually, if you could just scroll back to where you were, and I just want to get clarification in terms of what some of these symbols may mean. So the kind of the jagged circle represents basically a tree, right?
Yeah, I'm not, which one in particular? They're all kind of jagged
Not
circles.
asking for a particular tree in particular, because I'm not a tree specialist myself, but basically any of those, for example, if you scroll up a little bit, any of the circles that look jagged, that had like a number and a degree sign next to it, I assume that represents a tree, right?
Yeah, so these three up here are trees, pink flowering dogwood, oak tree. The other symbols represent ground cover and smaller shrubs, mostly for the foundation plantings.
Okay.
So the trees are really limited to this area up here and down here, so kind of on the side yards in the front.
Okay. So the areas that you have the X on,
These are trees to be removed.
those are trees to be removed.
Yeah, and that's for grading purposes.
And so when you scroll back up, and the reason why I just want clarification here is that really, when you look at the trees that are adjacent to the parkway, closest to the parkway that are adjacent, really you're disturbing maybe 1, 2, 3, arguably 4, and meanwhile you have all those other trees represented in those jagged circles still being maintained, especially in I guess in that wetlands buffer area as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a question.
Okay, Jeff.
Is there any reason why there's equipment and construction material on the property now,
I'm not aware of that.
the last 4
No.
months?
No.
No, I know. All right, so
Yeah, I wasn't involved in any of that.
Everything needs to be done on the record, please. And if you want to, during the Q&A, you'll be offered an opportunity to answer questions, but it has to be on the record. And it can't be from because the system we have just doesn't record it, and we have to have everything on the record. I hope you understand that.
Mr. Chairman, a follow-up for Mr. Bocci. Could you move the drawing to the left a little bit to get back to the front yard? No, that's it. So all of those Xed-out trees must be removed in order to be able to do the site work?
Yeah, we're significantly, you can see all these thicker, dark lines here. We're regrading the site to make it, work and be feasible, so you can't regrade all that and keep the trees.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
And I will check as to what the purpose of the construction equipment is.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. All right, now for questions from the public, like I said, what we'll ask you to do is come up and stand next to the microphone, identify yourself. And you can ask but it has to be a Q&A, it has to be a question and answer. The time to make a speech or whatever you want to do will occur when they rest and when they're finished with their presentation, okay? All right, yes, sir, come on up. Thank you for coming up, sir. Would you please recite your name? and
My name
address,
is
please?
Edward Hardis.
I'm sorry?
Edward Hardis. I reside at 1249 Smidge Avenue,
Thank you.
Union, New Jersey.
Questions for the witness?
Mr. Lawyer, can I just ask you one question? If you
Sir,
don't
you have
mind?
to speak into the mic.
Yes. I believe you had a meeting with few of our colleagues at where I reside. And this were your statement. I'm not going to quote, but the message is the same I'm going to say. Did you tell them that there is a fund of New Jersey allocation to the Board of Union, that whatever thing we do, the project is going to go on because there's a fund available by the state of New Jersey and it has been given to the board,
you have
the
a question?
union board. So it's weakening our people from coming
Question,
to decide
sir.
that. Did you tell them?
Sir, question?
I don't know. I have
Sir.
no idea what you're saying.
You're
Yep.
saying that there is a New Jersey allocated a fund.
All right, sir, you'll have a chance to make a presentation when they rest. They're not rested yet, they're still.
No. I'm asking a question. Did he? Because that is why most of our people are not here today. They're saying that decision has already been made.
All right.
We're just wasting our time coming here.
I'm not trying to stop you, sir. I don't even know what question you're asking, so I'm asking you as the
No,
chair.
this is
your
the question.
please? Yeah.
He had a meeting, and few of our people were there, about 6 or 7, and he make them to inform that we're just wasting our time to come
he?
and fight.
Who's he?
The lawyer.
Mr. Hale?
Yes, sir.
I would be stunned if
No,
Mr. Hale said
is
that to you, sir.
Totally untrue. You
Is-
weren't there, that's not true.
No, this is what I'm trying to tell you. The
All right,
message you
sir,
give them
sir,
is
he gave you his
we're-
answer.
I'm not
Excuse me,
gonna
point of order.
Point of
We
order.
can't have this while we have cameras
Okay,
going on
all right.
and everything. People
Okay.
need to ask their
all right,
questions.
can I
He
have a
answered
question
your
with the
He
engineer,
did not-
please?
Sir, he answered your question.
Sir, I know you're an engineer professional, but can you fight nature? Because what you are showing us now, you're going to give a diagram saying that there will be drainage of water. You know when it rains in New Jersey.
All right, sir, you have to give him an opportunity.
I'm asking a question now. You know it rains
Yeah,
in
but
New
you have to
Jersey,
give him an opportunity to answer, sir.
and they have a slope on Earl Street. All those people that live on Earl Street down at the slope, don't you think their basement will be flooded when it rains because you're going to cut down the trees?
No, we have a detention basin proposed that'll collect all the rainwater from the site.
Sir, now, can you fight
Yes.
nature?
Sir, he asked you, he answered your
Yeah,
question.
what do you say? Go on.
We have a detention basin that's been designed in accordance with accepted engineering practices.
Has this worked? Because what I'm saying is,
Yes.
I have never seen any engineer that fights nature. Because no one has fought. If you can fight nature, trust me, you'll be a billionaire.
All right, sir.
Because this is rain.
Sir.
You're going to remove all the trees.
Sir, I want to cut you off. You
Yeah.
have to ask a question, give him the opportunity to answer, okay?
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, and I don't want to have to cut you off, but you really have to ask a question, okay?
Yeah, I've already asked him the question. Are you going to remove how many trees? Have you seen this land? Have you practically seen this land?
Yes, I have. We're removing
And-
10 to 20 trees.
Do you know how many trees there? Have you estimate?
I
Approximately.
haven't counted them now. But it's very common, this is, you develop land that's.
Okay.
All, every house that is built in Union was
But-
previously vacant,
Yeah.
and then a house was built.
Okay,
It's-
Mr.
it's
Lawyer,
the
I have
nature
another
of
question for
development.
you. Are you aware of any ordinance in New Jersey stating that if you cut down a healthy tree, you have to replace it with 2 trees?
So you're
Do you know
asking
of
him
any
for legal
ordinance?
advice? No, he's not going to answer your question. You're asking for legal advice.
You have to ask him questions on
Right.
what he testified to.
Okay, you're going to cut down, you said 10 trees?
This site, I believe, is 14.
14 trees. For a 2-structural building, do you have the structures?
I don't have the architectural plans now.
Are you going to cut down just 10 trees? Does that make sense?
Sir,
Yes, it does.
No. Sir,
okay. Any other questions, sir?
There's so many, but I have to sit down and I give others
Yeah,
opportunities
we
to
have
come
quite a
over.
few others to come up.
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Bocci, you might want to explain to the residents that as part of your landscaping plan, you're going to be replacing a number of these trees. Isn't that correct?
That is correct. Yes, we have, we're proposing 6 trees. Forget how many are being cut from this lot, but we are replacing some, and again, we have a detention basin to mitigate the impacts from tree removal and construction of the home. And again, designed in accordance with accepted engineering practices to detain the water and then meter it out slowly. It's done on just about every project I work on.
All right, thank you. Before I call the next witness, I just want to emphasize, the question is for the witness, not the lawyer. The allegation that was made against Mr. Hill is something I would be stunned if it was accurate, and I really don't want to get into that. He's an honorable lawyer, one of the best in the business, and if you're going to make allegations of impropriety on Mr. Hale, that's not what we're here for. And frankly, I'm not buying it, and it doesn't help your argument at all. So With that said, please keep your questions to the witness, and please be professional, and let's get through this, okay? Okay? All right, does anybody else have any questions? Sir, come on up.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, sir.
First
Would you
name is
please?
Mauro, M-A-U-R-O. Last name is Bonarota, B-U-O-N-A-R-O-T-A.
Thank you. Where are
I'm
you?
on Earl Street there, and I would just like to know, when's the start time for this?
Depends on getting approvals. I couldn't answer that.
I'd like to know how long it's going to take to do.
I'd say a few months,
A few months.
yeah, for, grading, construction of the home.
What would happen during this process with the street? Is it going to be shut down?
The street, I wouldn't anticipate that.
Because there is no line of sight. I'm sorry, it's questions only. I'd just like to know about the parking and the street being shut down. It's a very busy street as it is right now. I just want to know, what are you going to do about that?
There'll be some temporary disturbance here within the right-of-way. That wouldn't, I imagine, last long, the construction of this concrete sidewalk. But generally, there's plenty of room on site to store
Right.
construction equipment,
Okay?
et cetera. I can't see the street being shut down for that. Maybe no parking here for a short duration.
Well, there's no parking there now anyway.
Okay.
Okay, those are the only questions for now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from the public? Oh, hi, you were here last time. Come on up. How you doing? Yeah, can't complain. You please recite your name for the record and your address, please?
Sure, I'm Linda Revnak, and it's 68 Earl Street.
Okay, please ask questions of the witness, please.
Okay. I did have some questions, and I believe, for clarification, are we talking about one of the properties or both of the properties?
Just one, the southern,
So I don't know which. The
downhill,
top-
downhill,
The bottom of the
Yes,
hill,
yes.
not the top of the hill?
correct.
Okay. So I know I read somewhere that 19 trees were being removed. That was from one of the properties. I don't know which one that was.
Yeah, I just confirmed it's 14 for this property.
So it's 14 from this property and 19 from the other property. Those woods are very thick, and they do block the noise from the parkway. So the small trees that you're going to replace these with, they're going to be small. These are huge oak trees and
Hey,
maple
do you have a
trees.
question, ma'am?
Are they going to stop the sound the same way that the current trees do?
I'm not an expert on sound mitigation. I will point out, though, that you have this whole structure here that's, spanning most of the width of the property within the side yard setbacks, but the structure itself should block sound as well.
It's not the same as a tree. The other thing is that you mentioned that there's a fencing from the wetlands.
So, yeah, to clarify, we have fencing proposed over here that kind of blocks out we're trying to kind of keep the wetlands protected and putting fence around it.
I understand, but won't that fence stop the rite of passage for the wildlife that goes through there? I was there today, there's deer in there, and the deer should have a right to pass through to those wetlands and go through the way they normally do now.
I mean, they'll be able to get around it. It's not blocking this whole area. It's a limited.
So if there's a fence, it's not going to block anything? What's the
They
point
can
of
They can move around the fence.
What's the point of a fence if it doesn't block anything?
It's not going to trap the deer or anything. The deer will just walk around the fence.
Then I misunderstand. So on your plan, isn't the line in the back the fence?
This is fence, continues up here, comes into the house.
So if,
So I don't like.
so
I mean,
how
we
are the
don't-
deer going to get around a fence if it blocks it in?
I guess hypothetically, a deer could come this way and go that way.
But isn't that the second property above it? And won't there also be a fence there?
I suppose a deer could come down this way and go through that
No.
property?
No, because that already has a fence. That already has a fence for the property on the bottom. So in other words,
All right, Q&A,
so,
question,
okay.
please.
So from what I see, that fence looks like it's going to stop the wildlife from their right of passage. Is there a way to correct that so that that will not affect the wildlife that exists now?
I'm not really sure about the deer's kind of how they move and where they want to go and et cetera.
Well, they go to the wetlands, right? So there's water back there.
I couldn't hear you, ma'am.
So that's an issue that I see as a problem. The grading of the trees, I know you said that you did studies and that you're going to have the water run down a different way. When you, in your profession, when you pull established trees out, and how do you do the grading? Like, do you take bulldozers and flatten it? So how is the driveway going to go down to the property? Because
Yeah, let me-
the street is up here.
Yeah, so just to zoom in a little more, these are our elevations. You can see the numbers, elevation 85 down to 80. It continues going down, driveway specifically, and, sorry, touchscreen's not cooperating. In this corner, you see here, we have an inlet to collect that water coming down the driveway, as well as this is all grading down, and it all gets collected, and we have, gets piped to this detention basin here. And what happens in there is it stores all the water, and there's a small 2.5-inch diameter, I believe, or, small pipe coming out of there. So it collects all the water level rises, and it slowly comes out of that bottom orifice there. So that's how we mitigate excessive runoff to the neighbors, is by you store it, it's a big tank, and then it slowly comes out of this small, orifice this big. So
And
the
is that
majority of the
also-
site is being collected. It's not going to run off to the neighbors.
So maybe I just don't understand, which would be.
I'll-
So here's the top of the hill,
Mhm.
right? You're talking about the property on the bottom.
Mhm.
So you're going to get rid of the trees, and you're going to get rid of the dirt. So how,
It's going to be grassed, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
so you have to grade it so that it's a slope, which it already is a steep slope.
Mhm.
So how are you going to level it out so that it goes to the property without there being a steep incline? I don't understand.
It'll still remain relatively steep. In this area, we're softening it a little bit, but, drop of water that falls here where my cursor is, it comes down this hill. This will still be a hill. It flattens a bit on the driveway, so it comes down, will enter the driveway, come down, collect here, be piped to the detention basin. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
And maybe I'm not asking it correctly. So the driveway for the bottom property is going to be at the base of the hill?
Correct, yeah. Yeah, this is the bottom here. So this is like the low point in the corner here. In the current state, that's an existing low point. It's still going to remain a low point
Right.
down there.
And that does go against the property at the next property over. My concern, have you done the traffic study? Because if anybody, you could ask these folks, anybody who goes up or down that hill, people coming down the hill can't see the people going up the hill. It's quite narrow, and I mentioned this the last time. It's quite narrow there, so anybody going up the hill can't really see the people coming down the hill. So if people are coming down the hill and somebody's trying to come out of your driveway, that's going to be a traffic hazard. So I believe last time we were here, the thought was that a traffic plan was going to be developed, also because of the parking situation. There is no parking
You have a question,
anywhere.
ma'am? You have a question?
So have you done a traffic plan or checked to see the safety of that bottom driveway with the consistency of the road and how it goes down?
First, regarding parking, we've established that there's adequate parking on site. Regarding the safety of the driveway, it's not uncommon to have a driveway on a hill, at the bottom of a hill. I think it's perfectly safe for a single-family home to have a driveway at the bottom of the hill. I grew up near one. It just, you have, you know, people, when you are at the crest of a hill, you're usually careful. When you're coming up a hill, drivers are careful. It's
Well, I saw a near collision the other day, just,
We're also, the
So was-
change in grade and removing some of the trees that are along the property line here will help visibility as well.
that won't help visibility because the site of the street, there's no trees on the hill. So
Yeah.
has a traffic study been done?
I've not done a traffic study, no. In my opinion, it's not a hazard.
Okay. Has there been an environmental study to see the effect on the wildlife or the removal of the trees? You mentioned in your comments that because of the grading, really nothing could be built there. And honestly, that's probably why nothing has been built there when all of our homes were built. So has there been any environmental study done to check the effect on the wildlife, the green space, the effect that green space has on community residents?
Not by me.
Is that something that we would consider? We would like to see something like that done. And although I know you say you have this whole plan with the way the water drains and all of that, from a logical point of view, to many of us, it doesn't appear that that's going to stop possible flooding, especially into the bottom of the hill.
Question?
So would there be any consideration of doing any other type of study, especially for the bottom property, the next property down, that there is definitely no flooding issue?
I mean, if the board wants, I could do a more comprehensive analysis of the stormwater. But I would say this is
Yeah, we've done a detailed engineering plan that's been reviewed by the township engineer and will be subject to their review.
Because I read in something here,
I'll tell you, this is for a house of this size, this is a very large basin. And the woodedness, the wooded area was a consideration. This is relatively large compared to what I'm typically designing for a house of this size.
and I would think that it's large because of the slope and the fact that this is a potential for flooding. The other question I had was, the last time we were here, it was stated that each home is going to be 4,662 feet, I think it is, square feet. And we raised the issue of, because the executive director says they tried to fit into the neighborhood. So I know someone from the board had asked us, well, what's the square footage of our homes? So my home, the square footage is 1,500 square feet. These are going to be 4,600 square feet. And how does that fit into the neighborhood? It's going to...
That's not quite engineering, not really my expertise, a little more architectural, but I will say that it complies with the height requirements per the zone and the side yard and rear yard setback. So it fits in what the town
Zoning
is
rules are.
looking for.
But it does change the way the community, it looks, because it doesn't look anything like us. And maybe this isn't a question for you, but every place that I've seen community access build homes, they're much smaller, and they do more or less fit into the community. Why would it be such that these homes are going to be so large?
Really not a question I can answer.
Okay. And I guess maybe this question you can't answer either. All of the other areas where community access has built homes, they're one home. In this case, you're putting two homes, and I guess it's because of the property that was the town sold, but that brings on an additional burden on the community to have two homes instead of one. Okay, sorry. Would there be any opportunity, instead of having two, to just remove and just have one?
I don't think that's really I can't answer that. I'm really just here for the engineering of the sites we do have.
Okay. And when will we discuss the second home?
That's the next application when this one's completed.
Right, we're doing one application at a time, ma'am.
Okay. So from what I get, you're willing to do a more extensive environmental study as well as a more
well,
extensive traffic
No, we're-
study?
No,
yeah.
this is governed, as we said at the outset, we're governed by the rules for one-family homes, and that's the zoning that's required. There's no requirement for environmental study, there's no requirement for a traffic study. It's no different than if someone was building a single-family home for themselves. That's the rules that apply for community residents, so that people can't come and try and keep people with developmental disabilities out of the neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Any further questions, ma'am?
I guess not. Would there be any consideration to move the driveway? Because that is going to be an issue for the safety of the community.
If the board would like that, we'll consider that.
Okay, those are my questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's see, a person all the way in the back, under the sign, in green. All right. Well, you. Oh, man.
Oh, he's.
Well, ladies first as far as I'm concerned. All right. Please recite your
I
name
don't
and your
know
address,
if
please.
this is a question for you. My name is Roberta Jones. I live 1240 Schmidt Avenue. The last time the lady was here, she said that it's going to be 2 adults that's going to be supervising these children, and it's only going to be 3, I guess they're going to be adults or children that they're going to be taking care of. Just now listening, what do you need 46,000 feet for 5 people? This is what she said.
Yeah, that's out of the engineering review.
So that question doesn't get answered, because this is why we're here. We're here to find answers and question to the answers that we want, because we live around 1240 Smith Avenue, Earl. So my question is, what do they need 46 square feet for 5 people in one house?
I would say the building is, we're not asking for a variance for building size or square footage or anything like that. We're looking for a variance for front yard setback, so setting it back, and disturbance of the steep slopes.
But
The size of the building has nothing
Okay.
to do with that.
Question, with all your knowledge, you don't think that's a lot of space for just 5 people? No, because that's what my concern is. If you're going to do one of these housing at 46 square feet, and you're only going to house 5 people, why, like she said, why do you need so many rooms? Why can't you only build one?
That's outside of my expertise.
But there are other witnesses, ma'am,
Okay.
who may have your question for you. Thank you. Sir? Hello again, sir. How are you?
My name is Richard Bauman. I reside at 1219 Schmidt Avenue. I have basically 2 questions. This is the southern one at the bottom of the slope.
Can you talk into the mic, sir, please?
I'm in Schmidt Avenue, so
Move
I'm
it
more.
up. You can angle it up.
Hi, I'm at Schmidt Avenue, so I'm more concerned with the northern one. But watching this presentation, I guess what's probably putting people off on the drainage issue, which is my first question, is as you describe it, the catch basin will be north of the bottom of the hill. The catch basin is the sketchy lines, yeah, you just had it up there?
This is the catch basin that I mentioned that collects
Yeah.
from the driveway. This is the detention basin. It's underground.
So how does
just
the?
to be clear.
Yeah, no, I'll understand that, but at that point, I guess what people are seeing, because of the hill stature, gravity's going the wrong way. You want to fill the retention basin is north of where the water will all flow, and then you want to push it back up the hill to there.
It's not being pushed up. The detention basin is at a low point. It's all, underground, so
Yeah,
it's.
well, that's another part, leads into the next question. How are you retaining, with what you're doing to the property, the integrity of Earl Street, so that there's no, considering the steep slope of Earl Street itself, that there's no give way back into, that the road doesn't start crumbling,
There's still going to be soil up against it. We max out at 3-to-1 slope. That's considered a stable, safe slope. So I don't see any reason to think that Earl Street will subside.
Now, then it comes to a question. You made a statement about the property not being developable because of the grade there. I'd like you to explain more on that, because that is pretty much most of what the community's concern is. They considered this property as not being able to be developed because of its state. So what is it that allows this project to go through when you said just before, if we didn't do that, this wouldn't be a viable project?
Yeah, so you can't develop it without disturbing those steep slopes because they come across the site.
Yeah, that's why everyone in this community just never considered that area to be even, I apologize, to be developable.
So that presents a hardship for the owner.
Yeah.
That they can't develop on their lot without.
Well, you chose to purchase that lot. I mean, it's not like it's a surprise that the lot has an inconvenient grade. It's also why it was, I apologize. It's also why it was significantly undervalued. I mean, as I understand in the last discussion, we determined that this was purchased at only $20,000 and will forever be property tax free.
Sir, a question, please?
Well, the question
You
is,
have to answer a question.
what is it that makes this viable now, a project, when you described before it wouldn't be viable with these,
So
describe that process for us.
Let me rephrase. You can develop on,
Anything,
anything, right. What I was saying is, you wouldn't be able to do it if you didn't disturb the steep slopes. So you have to disturb the steep slopes to develop on this site. That's.
Yeah, so why do you have permission to alter the slopes? Because yes, it's the natural grade of the hills. It's why it was ignored for 70 years, and the road was laid out that way. So why do you have permission? I don't know if it's from the board or.
We're seeking relief.
So the question is, considering the natural state of the land, why should the board agree to having the land altered?
So you're asking.
We have a professional planner that will adjust the planning justifications for the relief.
Okay.
Right.
Are they testifying tonight?
Yeah.
You go on the record.
Okay, then.
No, sorry, in your microphone.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll put that question to them. Then in the practical application of that, describe to the audience what it is what's going to be missing when you just, like, if you're a regular commuter who's just driving up that street, right now, we know what it looks like. What will it look like once what you've done to the road looks like? How will it be different besides, your facility?
Yeah, I mean, there'll be less trees. The facility, as you mentioned, will be there, and the slope the grading will be a little bit different in the front. You're talking from a road perspective?
Yeah, if I was just driving, I'm at the bottom of Earl, I'm driving on up. Right now, I know what it looks like. What will it look like afterwards? Because no one here can actually picture the actual development as it is, and everyone's got this mental block in their head where none of this makes sense to them.
Sure, I mean, the slope of the area is going to change, the grading's going to change. Some trees are going to be removed, so you'll see more of an open grassed area with slightly more gentle slope.
Okay.
In some areas and maybe steeper in others.
Is the northern building being discussed today, or is that another night?
Mr.
That's
Hale?
tonight as well. Thank you, then.
Okay, sir, thank you. Any other questions from the lady in the white top? Or my eyes are bad. It might be, yes, it's you. I'm sorry. My eyes are bad. It might. Good evening. Just give us your name, go up to the mic, and just give us your name and your residence, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vita Bowman. I live on Earl Street, 1652. I come to learn about this project in the beginning part of May. I'm not sure if it was planned before, but how I found out about it was a notice in my mailbox. It wasn't even like saying who it was from clearly, but I'm really concerned. I have children.
Question? You have a question, ma'am?
Well, he's the architect. It's really to the board.
Okay, we're going to have that after the applicant rests. That's
Okay.
part of questions for the board. Right now, we're in the Q&A portion of the meeting.
For the architect only?
No, for the witnesses that he calls.
Okay.
For all the witnesses that he calls. You'll have plenty of time to address the board in that regard.
Okay,
Just a
but let me
clarification.
just ask.
He's the engineer. There is an architect that will testify in a few moments.
Okay.
Okay. And you're more than welcome to come
I
up.
do have a lot of questions really about the safety and the traffic pattern of it. I know someone brought up, has there been a study about it? I'm not sure if that's mandatory or not, but it really needs to be addressed because
Yeah,
that,
Gotta ask a question.
I know you're really not sure about that, but are you able to address the safety and traffic concerns of our community regarding how it will be or how it's proposed to be after the project is going on and after it's finished?
As I said before, we're here for community residents that permitted as in the one-family zone. We're here seeking relief for setback and steep slope. There's no, if someone was building a one-family home, there's no requirement for a traffic study. These are treated, and that's why there's a statute to protect people with disabilities.
I'm not really talking about the people with disabilities. I'm talking about how it's going to affect our
Okay,
community.
We'll
You
comply
still
with
need to
all
ask a question, ma'am.
required, sorry.
Yeah, you still need to ask a question.
And one more question.
Okay.
Is is this just a formality? Because I'm really not clear about that. Is this just a formality, the question and answer towards the witness that the project is going forward? Or,
Ma'am, this is, the form of order that we have here is to do exactly what we're doing.
okay,
This is not a formality. This is a hearing. The
Mhm.
witness is under oath, so this is not a formality whatsoever.
okay.
We are giving everyone a fair shake, like we did last time, to ask questions of a witness, and afterwards to present whatever information they have to the board they'd like. So what you see here going on today is normal. It's what we do all the time. And this is the Q&A part. And so as far as this being a formality, it's absolutely not a formality, I can tell you.
Okay, one more question maybe for you.
No, I can't answer your
Oh,
question.
maybe
That's the
not for
witness.
you, someone who can answer the question.
Right.
Because there was a meeting that was supposed to happen in May, like right before Memorial Day, and it was postponed. Then in June, it was supposed to be
Got a
another
question for him, ma'am?
question for him.
Yeah.
I don't know who my questions are for because I have these concerns and I'm trying to be respectful and understand the process.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't understand. Should I wait until after?
Well, if it's about are you talking about the community outreach meeting that they had?
I
we
was
discussed
not
that today.
reached.
I'm sorry?
I wasn't reached,
You
and
weren't
I
reached.
live
You
right
didn't
in
know
the
about the community
community. I'm not
outreach?
sure
Okay.
about anyone else.
Okay. I think that
But-
sounds like this sounds like what, was it the Knights of Columbus?
No, I didn't know anything
You didn't know?
about it.
Yeah,
I don't know how they how did they go about reaching out to the
Well,
community?
it's called, no, that's the name is community outreach, and what happens is, what we did last time is we suggested to the applicant that they do a community outreach to the residents, so that their information is presented to them before the next meeting. And that's done really more as an information session than anything else. And I wasn't there either, don't get me wrong, but according to Mr. Hale, one was conducted at the Knights of Columbus a while back.
When
and,
was it, and how did you reach out to the community?
I
Because
don't know, ma'am.
Yeah,
I don't know how that was
either.
done. Okay.
Do you want to answer? Or
No,
who should
he doesn't
answer?
He's the lawyer. He
He's the
represents
lawyer.
executives.
I don't know who's going to answer.
All
How
right.
did they
We
reach
may
out
not
to the
have that
community?
answer for you today, because I wasn't there either. But I do know that it doesn't sound like our witness has the answer for you, so we'll have to find it from somewhere else.
Okay, so I'll wait until.
Yeah, but
this-
let's see what happens, see how the other residents come in. If
Okay.
you still have questions, if we don't have an answer for you, I promise we'll get back to you. But
Okay,
that's
thank
all I can tell you,
Okay,
okay?
thank you.
I'm trying to go for the ones who are for the first time. Okay, sir in the green? Is there any, other than the gentleman in the gray shirt, is there anybody else that wants to do a Q&A? No, over here? Okay, good, thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Hi.
Hello. Give your name and your residence, please.
Scott Watson, 1641 Earl Street.
Sure enough. And again, so this is a Q&A, this is a question and answer, so.
I understand, thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, you stated regrading the property. By regrading, do you mean the destruction of the forestation that's currently in place?
Yes, we're removing 14 trees. We're not destroying all the trees or,
You testified that you did not count the trees. Who counted the trees, sir?
what do you mean, the total number of trees on site?
Sure.
You're asking?
Who counted the trees, sir?
I'm
You
not-
specifically stated 14 trees. Who
Yes,
counted
I
those?
counted 14 being removed. Total existing trees, I don't know off the top of my head.
You don't know who counted the trees.
I counted 14 being removed.
Sir, did you go to the
He answered-
location?
I'm sorry, I believe he answered your question. He doesn't know,
Did-
he doesn't know who counted the trees.
He doesn't know. who
Oh, we
counted
have
the
a
trees.
are you, yeah,
I'm
our
asking who
survey, our
counted the
surveyors go
trees.
out and identify all the
So
trees.
surveyors have gone out and counted each individual tree.
They identified them on the plan. I don't know if they were counted.
Okay. You have testified of a basin that's being created for the runoff, correct?
Correct.
So that basin being designed is designed to hold all of the water in event of a rain to prevent flooding, correct?
Yeah, it's designed to mitigate peak runoff off-site. It depends on the size of the storm, whether it'll hold all of it or not.
Okay. So in, in peak runoff, when this basin exceeds its capacity, what happens?
I mean, it runs off, it gets discharged into these scour holes and runs off-site.
So when this basin exceeds its capacity, where will that water go?
It'll go off the property.
So it will not impact the residents whatsoever? It will not?
I mean, if there's a massive hurricane, everyone gets impacted, right? What we do when we design these basins is you look at what the existing condition is and how much runoff is going off-site currently, and you, now, you know, right, we're taking down trees, we're increasing the impervious coverage, so you're gonna have more runoff without a basin. So you put a basin in to
Right.
counteract that. So the goal is you have, the maximum you have running off-site is equal to what's currently running off.
How many of these
For like a
projects
100-year
have you,
storm, for example.
how many of these projects have you worked on?
Projects
Similar
in
to this.
general,
Yeah, in your career.
hundreds,
Has the basin ever been exceeded?
not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I mean, if you're talking about catastrophic events, you know, Hurricane Sandy, I'm sure plenty of basins exceeded their capacity.
But it would have to take, in your opinion, it would have to take a catastrophic event for this basin to exceed its capacity?
Yeah, what you typically do is you design to the, we look at a 100-year storm, with, you know, a 1% chance of happening a year. And with that storm, the goal is you have no increase of peak runoff rate.
In your expert opinion, it would take a catastrophic event, a 100-year storm, for this basin to be exceeded?
I believe he answered that question, sir.
I didn't hear a yes, I'm sorry.
Yes, for the peak runoff to exceed the current peak runoff, yes.
Okay. You have also testified to the behavior of animals and various wildlife on record.
I wouldn't say I testified to them. I answered the previous person's.
That's testimony, sir.
Sure, I testified.
Okay, are you an
That I
expert
didn't-
in that area?
No, that's what I stated, that I don't know the patterns of.
You
know,
testified
deer.
to,
You have to let him finish answering. Keep
I'm sorry.
interrupting.
Yeah, let him
Yes,
answer
I
the question.
testified
please.
that I don't know the travel patterns of deer.
but you did testify to the travel patterns of the deer.
No, I testified that I do not know the travel patterns of deer.
Sir, I
And some
sat there and listened to
hypotheticals
you
about
tell.
how they may travel,
Okay, is there a wildlife expert present?
not to my
I'm sorry,
knowledge.
that's not a question for you. I withdraw that. You also testified to traffic patterns, specifically addressing that you did not feel that there would be an impact, correct?
The traffic patterns?
I don't recall him testifying to that, sir. What are you talking about?
He answered questions in regards to
I said there's adequate parking on site.
No, you specifically answered questions in regards to the traffic on Earl Street. I heard you answer the questions, sir. Are you qualified to answer questions about traffic patterns?
As a civil engineer, I can discuss traffic, yes.
Okay, so you're qualified. So, and
I'm not an expert in transportation traffic engineering, but civil engineering under that umbrella is, yeah,
so
traffic.
you feel comfortable answering those questions?
Some questions regarding parking, and
No, I mean specifically to the impact on Earl Street.
there was no traffic study done, so. Just like there wouldn't be if, when you know, if you were to build your house down the street, you wouldn't do a traffic study.
I appreciate, no further questions? My house is in
You're welcome,
4,600
sir.
square feet, sir.
Thank you. I want to get who want to go first, then I'll call you, okay? Sir, okay. Anyone, yes, you in the green shirt, sir? Good evening, sir. Please recite your name and address for the record into the microphone, please.
Gus Lorenzo, 2774 Larchmont Road.
Pleasure to meet you, sir.
I got a question. I have a question about the trees, right? You say you're removing 14 trees, you said?
Correct.
Now, the person who laid out what trees is going to be removed is going to be like, you say in the civil, like,
Not to cut you off, we have them laid out on here, identified with X's.
the question was, who determines that it's going to be 14, or when you get to the site, it might be 21? Who determines that?
Well, we do. We're showing 14 on our plan, and the town will hold us to that.
Okay. Now, the other question was, you're removing the trees because of the drainage, right? You're going to cut back on that, what is it? Go ahead.
Sorry, not quite. When I talked about the drainage relating to trees, I was speaking how the drainage is compensating for the lack of trees, but we're removing these in the front because we have to regrade the front of this property, change the slope and everything. And also there's trees within the footprint of the proposed.
And what about the one on Earl Street? You're removing trees there too, on the side there?
In this right along Earl, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my question is, and you're saying those trees can't go back in, right? Because of the way you're cutting the slope down, right, for drainage?
I mean, we have to remove them in order to grade it.
Yeah, because you got to get the machine there, the equipment and all that to get all that done. But why
Can
can't
you let
you?
him finish his answer, sir, please?
Go ahead.
Like you have to remove them so we're able to move all this dirt around.
Yeah, I understand that. The question is, after you get all that done and everything, right, why can you put a retaining wall to and put proper drainage on a retaining wall so you could plant some of those trees back in place? I've seen that done plenty of times.
I just don't see a need to do that.
Is it a need or is it a cost? I mean, I worked in construction for 42 years, and then.
Sir, you gotta let him answer the question.
I'm sorry.
I just don't see the point. We can naturally grade the slope. I would always choose that option over a retaining wall. If I have enough room to grade and have a nice natural lawn and less concrete and everything, that's how I see it.
The question is what you see or what the community sees. You follow what I'm saying? I know what you're looking to see, what do you think is right? And then when you plant these trees, what are the size of these trees? These are going to be like
At planting, I think 2 to 2.5 inch caliper at planting.
Okay, but just put it to like something everybody would understand. What's the length? How tall is going to be the tree?
Yeah, maybe 6 foot, something like that.
All right, 6 foot, and you're taking trees that are what, 20 foot? I mean, well, how long does it take for a tree to reach that height?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
I understand
but,
that.
yeah,
I'm not
years,
trying to be
yeah.
a wise guy, but what I'm saying is like, why can you put a tree like that? You could probably but it's going to cost a lot more money, right? To go out and buy a 15-foot tree compared to a 6-foot tree. And that's what it comes down to. It comes out to the finance, the cost, and how fast you move this project. But at the same token, you got to worry about what you got to do for the community.
Question, sir? A question for him?
Yes. So that's all I had. All right?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, I think I saw, yeah. Ma'am, come on up. How are you? Please recite your name and address.
I would love to. Chastity Santana, 400 Forest Drive. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. So I don't live on this side of town, and I'm sorry, Mr. Civil Engineer. As a civil engineer, you look at this and you see it. You have the vision, right? And just like this prior gentleman just said, as a community, we don't see it. Is this the only thing that you use in the civil engineer world to show what things could really look like? Because I believe from what I see here, the abrasion is that we're looking at a black and white flat map, right, or whatever you call this. If we had more life and could see, just like was saying, at the bottom of the driveway, top of the driveway, all of that, if the vision was up here, I think that the community would feel more comfortable with what is coming, right? So, for example, when you said the flat.
Ms. Santana, do you have a question?
Yes, the question. Can you pull that up on Google, that address? We don't have internet?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I
You-
would defer to the
yeah.
board.
We have what's required, we've submitted our plans, and it's been reviewed by the engineer, including drainage.
No, yes, and I agree with you. What I'm,
Again, ma'am.
yes.
We're governed by what is governed for a one-family home or in.
And I love that, and I'm a friend. I'm a friend of everyone, the community, I live here, everyone on this side. But what I'm saying is, for example, when you were talking about the prior slope, I think there was the question of, if I'm driving by, and I've never driven by the street, or I probably have and don't know, what's the difference gonna be? So for example, if we saw the difference of it, right now it looks like this, but once this is over, it's gonna look like this, maybe that would have helped with the comfortability of the community knowing what's to come. So that's what I was looking at, because I understand the impact and the importance, but looking at a black and white flat surface and envisioning what's going to happen in your community is scary for moving forward.
All
So
right, any questions?
in civil engineer world, is this the best you got? No, I'm serious. Is that like, so for example, I work in corporate America. I have PowerPoint, I have Word. If I was to come here, like, what is it?
I think I don't know that, if I was in court, I would object for badgering the witness.
Oh, no, so I'm not
So-
badgering. I'm
well,
just,
no, I think you are, so please just ask a question. and
so
then
is
answer it.
this the best that you have as a visual to see it when you're, like, for example, moving trees or doing things to that nature? What would that program look like? Because this is just a
typically what we
PDF.
provide. It's developed from AutoCAD, and we PDF it.
No,
And
I
we're
don't think
showing
it's
the
what he wants us
engineering
to see.
Aspects of it. Architects typically have some nice renderings and elevations.
That could help. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Oh, the last meeting that they had it?
Last meeting they presented, we did have a illustration.
Yeah, the architect provided that.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Santana. What's that? Any other questions for all right, round two, sir, you want to come up? Oh, hold up, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir, 1 second. Is there someone else over here? Okay, come on up. Thank you. And again, sir, would you please recite your name and address for the record?
Edward Hardus, 1249 Smith Avenue.
Pleasure,
It's
sir.
just a quick question, Mr. Engineer. What plans do you have in place for these animals when you start this project? Because we have a lot of them there. Are they going to end up in the highway? And you know what is going to happen? Disaster. What plans do you have for the animals when you start doing this project?
That's outside of my
Because
purview.
I have lived there for 13 years, and I've seen these animals. That's what we bought the property for. It's a beautiful land. What plans do you have? Who can answer?
I think
this
he
question?
answered that already,
Asked
sir.
that several times. We've
No,
said
I have
before.
not. This is the first time I'm
No, but
asking
you
it.
just asked him.
And me and you not have
Sir,
a
you have to
problem.
go into
But
the-
every
Please.
time when
No.
we're
Sir.
asking the
Sir, I'm not
engineer
gonna
question, you
argue.
always come in.
No.
All right, sir, I'm going to cut you off again,
I know,
and I
but
really
every
would
time
rather
we're
not.
talking, he always
Come
in.
to the
You are the
microphone,
lawyer.
please.
We're asking the
You
witness.
asked him the same question 3
No,
times.
I
He
did
said-
not.
Come to the microphone, please.
Sir,
Come to
I
the
did not.
microphone. All right, ask
We
the
don't-
question.
I've already
We're
asked. Can
not
you
re-
answer the question, please?
That
He
has
already
nothing to do with this
answered you
application
that
of
we don't
wildlife
have
plan.
A plan for wildlife
All
and
right,
animals.
Sir, I'm going to give you an opportunity
That's
to ask
the question I want to
questions.
ask. I've already asked it. Can I ask it again?
You can ask it again, but if he's already answered it,
No,
it's asked and answered,
I don't
sir.
think, has he ever answered
Go
this
ahead,
question?
ask the question, please, sir.
What plans do you have in place for the wildlife animals when you start this project? Because
At
to
this
me,
time,
yeah.
sorry, finish.
Yeah, go on, go on.
At this time, there's no plan in place. It's not required to be in place.
It's
If
not
there's, if there's endangered species are discovered there or something, you know, that
Excuse me, you say it's not, what are you trying to tell me that it's not, what were you coming, what, you don't have nothing in plan with this, in place
Right.
with this
Yes,
animals?
sir, he That is answered that correct, yes.
So
question
you're
already.
just gonna leave it like that and build it?
He answered your question, sir.
that really
Yeah.
has no bearing on the application.
No, but trust me, when you start this project, you have you have to have plans for them because they're gonna end up on the highway. You're destroying the habitat. Where you expect them to go?
Okay, sir. Any questions?
It's gonna be disaster. That's what I'm trying to
Right.
say.
The
This is the
question-
highway.
Who-
You
Sir,
and
do you
myself
have
are
a question?
driving.
That's
Sir.
not a question. Do you have a question? for the
I
engineer?
already asked him.
Who, what, where, why, how, you know, just ask him the
I've
question. I
already asked
mean,
the question. Like, he has no answer. He has no place.
Okay.
They have no.
all right, as a
no
point of
plans.
order.
We do have other witnesses coming up, so you can feel free to ask them questions as well that might be more applicable to them.
All right.
Is that
Thank
fair?
you, sir. All right, any other questions from the public? Any other, second round, any questions from the board? All right, Mr. Hale, would you please call your next witness, please?
Yes, I'd like to call upon Nicholas Graviano, our professional planner. The architects are here, but they did present the plans at the last hearing.
Yes, I
so-
did. Mr. Grant, how are you, sir?
Good evening, Chairman.
Please recite your name, please.
Nicholas Graviano.
Please swear in the witness, please.
Mr. Graviano, do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, Mr. Graviano, if you could please give the board and the public the benefit of your work, educational experience, area of expertise, licenses you hold.
Yes, I hold a bachelor's degree from Rutgers University, a master's degree in city regional planning from Rutgers University, a law degree from the Temple University School of Law, where I received a distinguished class performance in state and local government law. I've testified in over 100 municipalities in 18 different counties. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey and also hold an AICP certification.
And all of your licenses are in full force and effect?
Yes, sir.
And I believe you testified before this in the zoning board in the township.
Yes.
I would offer Mr. Graviano as a professional planner.
So ordered.
All right, Mr. Graviano, as you know, we're here before this board seeking relief for the setback and steep slopes. If you could please provide the planning justification for that relief.
Certainly. The applicant is before this board this evening requesting C variance relief to construct a community residence. You've heard the background of the community which the applicant serves. This is an inherently beneficial use protected by the municipal land use law. You heard Mr. Hale indicate that on numerous occasions. I agree with his statements on that. So when you cut down to the basics of this application, there are only two real areas of relief that the applicant is requesting. The first one relates to the front yard setback. This zone requires a front yard setback of a maximum of 35 feet. The applicant is proposing 100 feet. Second, the applicant is requesting a disturbance of the steep slopes, whereas the applicant proposes disturbance of slopes that exceed 20%. Now, with respect to both of those variances, you heard Mr. Bocci give very rational and reasonable explanations to why these variances are being requested before you this evening, and Mr. Bocci's placement of the site plan before you illustrates the good reasons why these variances are being requested. I'm going to touch on the steep slope variance first. As you heard Mr. Bocci indicate, there are no way to develop this site without disturbing the steep slopes. So therefore, this variance would be necessitated by the placement of the building anywhere on the site. So when you look at that condition, it certainly could be granted under the C1 criteria, whereas it relates to the topography of a specific piece of property. And strict application of the township zoning ordinance would create an undue hardship upon the applicant before you this evening. Certainly, the granting of that steep slopes variance could be done without substantial impairment to the zone plan, zoning ordinance, or master plan. Relating to the front yard setback variance being requested, Mr. Bocci indicated two main reasons why this setback's being requested this evening. The first being that it creates a sidewalk to the dwelling that does not necessitate railings and rails and keeps it at a percentage that helps people navigate the site who have mobility needs. Secondly, the placement of the house beyond the front yard setback also helps accommodate vehicles into the site and also helps load and unload people with mobility challenges out of the house into the car without having to do that from the street. Touching on that note, there were comments related to parking. There are 6 surface parking spots on this site in addition to a 2-car garage. There's certainly more than adequate parking needs to meet the needs of this residence. So when it comes to the front yard setback variance, that can certainly be granted under the C2 criteria, whereas it advances purposes of zoning of the municipal land use law, specifically purpose A, to promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. The use itself does that, and the requesting of this variance does that by creating safe loading and unloading in vehicles, as well as safe pedestrian or wheelchair navigation through the site. Additionally, it advances purpose G to provide sufficient space and appropriate location for a variety of residential uses to meet the needs of New Jersey citizens. And as you heard in the applicant's operator testimony at the last hearing, there's certainly a need for this type of housing in the community. Lastly, this proposal advances Purpose I, a desirable visual environment, through creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. You saw the architectural plans. It's an impeccably designed house that is certainly befitting of the neighborhood. Additionally, the design of the driveway, the design of the rear yard parking, which eliminates the front yard parking, so you have a nice lawn leading to the front facade of the dwelling, as well as the accommodation of additional landscaping certainly helps provide the desirable visual environment. As with the C1 variance indicated for the slopes, there's no substantial impairment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance with the granting of that variance. I would also like to touch on, with respect to the steep slope variance, section 170-2106, as Mr. Bocci indicated, does allow for disturbance of the steep slope areas in circumstances where there's no feasible alternative. This is certainly a case where there's no feasible alternative. It also allows it to prevent extraordinary hardship on the property owner. There would certainly be an undue hardship on the property owner if that variance is not granted. In all, the two variances requested tonight can be granted under both the C1 and C2 criteria.
Thank you, Mr. Graziano.
Thank you very much, Mr. Graviano. No questions at this time, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Questions from the board? Questions from the public? Hi, come on. White sweater? Good evening.
Regina
Please recite your name and address, please.
Regina Crudup. I also live in Larchmont.
Pleasure to meet you, ma'am.
Same here. Okay, why here? Why do you want to build here?
This is a permitted use in the zone that the applicant is before the board this evening requesting two relatively minor bulk variances.
Did anybody consider the impact on the community other than I just want to build here?
There will be no impact on the community with this proposal. As indicated, it's permitted by the municipal land use law of the state of New Jersey in this community.
Did you consider other sites?
The application is for this site.
Did you consider other sites? Yes or no?
I wasn't privy to the selection process, but this is an appropriate site for the proposed use.
Okay. Did anybody realize the impact on people who live nearby or right around? Was that considered at all, or is it just that I'm just going to build here because I like this area?
I do not agree that there will be impacts from this proposed home.
I beg to differ, because you're not listening to this water thing, you moving out trees. I own 2 properties.
Questions, ma'am? Question?
Okay. And I pulled up the bushes of one, and I got a lot of water. And where I kept the bushes on the other house, I didn't get any water with these storms, Sandy and Ida. And so it does make a difference. When you pull out trees, people's basements are going to be flooded. And it seems like you don't care, or the owner of this project
ma'am.
doesn't care.
Question, please.
Ma'am, this project has been designed by a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. It's been reviewed by a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey.
Okay.
So great care and detail has gone into designing the drainage system of the site, by which the applicant's engineer has testified under oath that it was designed to work. And the second safeguard is that it's reviewed by the township's engineer as well.
Okay. The engineer couldn't give us an answer about where the extra water going to go when this gets full.
The engineer testified that it was designed to all applicable standards.
Okay, all right, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to get the first ones, and then we'll go. I think we have. Are we all done with the first timers? Oh. Yeah, I have a few second timers. I want for a second. All right. This is we have another application that we have to do, right, Mr. Hale?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see if we just wrap this up real quick with the second time around. Ma'am, you want to come up again? And I just put another, it's 8:35 right now, we have till 10 o'clock, so. I'm trying to move along.
Hello.
Please
So
state your name again, ma'am.
I'm Linda Revnek and from 68 Earl Street.
Right.
So the other fella, the engineer, said that there's 4 parking spots and parking along the driveway. But you're saying there's 6 parking spots and 2-car garage. So which is it?
There are 2 spots within the stem of the driveway. There are 4 spots in the rear part of the driveway, as well as a 2-car garage.
So is that along the driveway, or are they
I
like?
think I explained it pretty clearly. There's 2 in the stem of the driveway. You see them on the plan. That's where that bump out is. Then in the rear,
Can you show me, I don't understand plans.
all right, if you see in the rear part of the driveway, there's 4 spaces that are along the gridded area, which is the underground drainage system. Top of the page, do you see the grids? There are 4 spots here. There are 2 spots here. And then there is a 2-car garage here.
Okay, so there's 6 spots, in other words. Okay,
Plus the 2-car garage.
okay. Now, you mentioned here that without grading this steep slope, there would be no feasible alternative. And you also mentioned that the home is befitting the neighborhood. To go back to our previous comments, the homes are 1,500 square feet. This home is over 4,600 feet. And because you're going to make it that big, how is that befitting the neighborhood? Because none of our homes sit back more than, I don't even think it's 10 feet from the street. This is going to be sitting back, I believe it's 100 feet. So how is that befitting or fitting into our neighborhood?
Well, frankly, I believe it creates a desirable visual environment by creating a 100-foot green lawn from the street to the house. That's always a very aesthetically pleasing scenario. Additionally, I'd like to note that this zone allows a building coverage of 40%. The applicant is only at 8.89% with the proposed dwelling before you this evening. So this is by no means an extremely large home. This is a home designed in a way to meet the needs of the residents that will live there. When there are people in a home with mobility challenges, you need bigger space, you need space for people to get around. So I certainly do not feel that this house is out of character for the neighborhood.
Okay, well, maybe you don't live there. But the other homes that Community Access has built are not this size home, and yet they are able to handle the needs of developmentally disabled individuals. So why on this particular site is it a necessity to make them this large that doesn't give the appearance of being in our community?
As I said, this is not, in my opinion, an exceptionally large house for the community. The applicant is far below the permitted building coverage. The applicant is far below the permitted impervious coverage. 60% impervious coverage is permitted. The applicant's only at 28.8%.
Can you explain that to me? I don't understand that.
So the applicant would be allowed to either put buildings or structures or parking areas on a lot at 60%. The applicant's only at 28.8%.
So so from my understanding, the drainage area, the parking lot, the building, the driveway, the sidewalks, that's only 20% of the whole?
28.8. The drainage basin is underground. It does not count as impervious coverage. There is soil and grass above that.
And the fenced area that's beyond in the back, does that count since it's fenced off?
That's all undeveloped land. That goes into the non-impervious coverage calculation.
Okay, well, all I know is the look of our community and the fact that our homes sit close to the street, and they are much smaller. So, although in your opinion it befits the neighborhood, I believe in the rest of our opinions it does not befit the neighborhood. But
Question?
thank you for your information.
Thank you. Sir, you in the green shirt, sir? You want to come back up? Hello again, sir. Would you please recite your name and address?
Hello, I'm Richard Bauman. I reside at 1219 Schmidt Avenue. Okay, I guess the first question is the setback. You're asking it because it would make the facility would be unviable without the setback, as the way it's been described.
No, that was not described that way.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's, when we hear that both the previous testimony and yours, you're saying without, while you can, the grounds for the setback is hardship on the developer, but the community sees.
No, that's not my testimony either.
Oh, okay. That's how it comes across. The question we have is, you've mentioned that you did not, were not there for the selection of the site, but looking at this, it looks like it's a poor site for this development, and the community considered, the reason this area was not developed for 70-plus odd years is, as we see it, it wasn't fit to be developed. And yes, there are current rules, probably different from when 1954, 1934, when most of the houses came down, but people felt that this area was not going to be developed, and were surprised to find out that there had even been a sale, and only learned of that now. The question is, with what, how do I phrase this? None of us can seem to picture how this will work with the existing slope of the, you're not redesigning the Earl Street. It's not going to be ripped up and repaved and redone. You're just building on the facility. None of us see how any of these projects make sense in the term of that.
Question.
Oh,
Question,
okay.
please.
Well, I wanted, see, I seem to be confused about what you're saying about the setback. As I was hearing, without the setback, this project wouldn't be viable. You're just saying that's
No.
not your testimony.
Sir, you've
Okay.
heard by two professionals
Yeah.
that without the disturbance of the steep slope relief over 20%, this project wouldn't be feasible. What I testified to is that there is a rationale for the setback variance request in that it provides a sidewalk at a slope with that people with mobility challenges can navigate. That's the first one.
Okay.
Secondly, it provides space to load and unload in the driveway without burdening the street, which is the big concern of everybody in this building.
Well, their concern is also, as you've described it, there are two things then that come from that. One is there's plans for 8 cars to be here at the same time on a very narrow and very already busy and basically congested and dangerous road.
No,
And-
there is space at the residence for 8 cars. No one ever testified that there will be 8 cars there at one time.
Well, we all see, nobody ever plans for situations like that, but that is something that can happen. And second,
The applicant has gone above and beyond to provide off-street parking to eliminate any parking concerns of the board and the community.
okay, the other part you brought up is there the possibility then of future expansion of this facility? You described that by the rules, this is only 20% and they're allowed up to 60%. Can this community expect at some point you to come back and say, well, we're adding further facilities here, we're adding an addition and an expansion to this building and adding more people and more further parking?
You heard the operator's testimony regarding plans for the building and the site at the last hearing.
Okay. Now, I'd like a theoretical then. Let us pretend that the committee made a decision and said no to the setback. What happens in that scenario when you go on to continue the project? Please describe that to us in the community.
I'm not going to get into that. I provided the planning justifications, the positive and negative criteria for the application that's before the board this evening. I'm not going to get into that hypothetical.
You don't have a plan, without offense, the reason some people in the community say, oh, this is a formality, is that attitude. The board has the ability to say no to the setback.
Yes, but I'm
and-
not going to taint the record with a hypothetical that could damage the case of my client, so I'm not going to do that.
Oh, okay, you're just refusing to answer the question. Thank you. All right, then.
All right, any other questions from the public? Yes, ma'am. Good evening, how are you? Good evening, ma'am. Please recite your name and your address, please.
My name is Lauren Osgood, and I'm actually here, and I don't know if I'll be able to do it, representing...
1 second, ma'am. Sir. Yeah, you'll have time to do it after we adjourn, okay? I'm sorry, ma'am. Go ahead.
I'm here representing someone who was out of town, who lives at 1666 Earl Street.
Okay.
So I basically, I don't want to open up a can of worms, but something that maybe the community have not considered is the fact that, I know you're saying 8 parking spaces, but some of these people who are disabled may possibly have family members who come to visit.
Yes, yes, that was provided in operator testimony, yes.
And parking will be provided also for those family members that come to visit.
The parking on the home is for all employees or visitors to the site.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions from the public? Sir, in the green shirt? And I just acknowledge it's 8:45, we're getting a little late, we can wrap up, then we have another application we gotta go through. No problem, no problem.
Scott Watson, 1641 Earl Street.
Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure. Sir, you testified that this house is befitting the neighborhood multiple times. The house size is 4,600 square feet. At what point, what size house would it stop being befitting the neighborhood, in your expert opinion?
When the applicant's requesting for a building coverage variance,
What size house would not be befitting the neighborhood, in your expert opinion?
I just gave you the answer. The Township of Union has no FAR requirement. The Township of Union has no maximum square footage requirement. You have an applicant before you this evening with a site that's 35,490 square feet, whereas 5,000 square feet is required in the zone. So you have a lot that's 7 times the required size of the district. This is an area where if you combine these 2 sites, you could feasibly have a residential subdivision with a cul-de-sac. I think the community is actually fortunate to have 2 single-family dwellings
Oh, we're
proposed
fortunate.
on these sites.
Sir.
Sorry.
Doug has a question.
Did you just say that we should be fortunate, sir?
I think there are alternate development scenarios that could get more than 2 single-family dwellings on these parcels, yes.
I'll take that as a yes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to cut off the questioning now for this application only because it's getting late, and I don't want to keep everybody unless we have to. Do you have any other questions from your?
No.
Mr. Rep-
No, we have no further witnesses at this time.
Okay, and for application 2024-03?
Well, we would start that one.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. All right, so my thought is, because it's essentially the same property, to just do all in one, because like I said, it's getting late.
Sure.
Is that?
Yeah,
simple?
I mean, that was going to be with the second one, basically the same
It's basically the same property,
operational, same
let's just
house
do this
except
now.
for some aesthetics. So what I was going to do is maybe call Mr. Bocci to explain the layout, the site plan on the second house.
Okay, how long will the presentation take?
Should be quick because it's essentially the same, so.
Okay.
All right, so now we moved on to.
Okay, we're going to review application 2024-003. Hello again, Mr. Bocci.
Hello, sir. Good to go.
Yeah, and again, Mr. Chairman, Board, and public, yeah, this is now the 1760 Earl Street, the adjacent property. Again, community access unlimited, community residents, again, permitted by statute and under our ordinances, and very similar design of the home, same type of operational testimony, but there's slightly difference now in the site plan. And by the way, on this lot also, from the previous application, we withdrew the request for the front yard fence, and the only relief, again, that we're seeking is the steep slope and the setback, so.
Mr. Bocci, just for the record, you are still under oath?
Understood. So as Mr. Hale said, this is the lot adjacent to the previous application we discussed. This is block 1804, lot 13. I'll try to be brief for time's sake. Like the other lot bound to the north by Earl Street, to the east and west by residential properties on either side, and to the south by Garden State Parkway property and a residential unit there. I'm going to jump down to the survey. I'll briefly discuss the existing conditions. Again, we have steep slopes on this site. It's currently vacant. Trees, vacant with the exception of a small concrete sidewalk remnants of some previous construction. Again, we have steep slopes crossing through the site. If you kind of follow my cursor, that's essentially where the steep slopes are located. Again, it would be impossible to develop anything here without disturbing them as they come across the site and are located towards the front, to get access or anything in there. Again, like the other site we mentioned, it does slope down from Earl Street down to this corner of the site here. That's the southern corner. So not much to say on existing conditions. Sloped, treed, vacant. I'll go to our sheet 2, the site plan. You'll notice it looks very similar to lot 1. Again, these are revised July 12, 2024. So the project consists of kind of regrading much of the site. We have the proposed dwelling, kind of a little cockeyed on the site to kind of work with the existing slopes that are there. We are requesting a 100-foot front yard setback here. Make sure I'm hitting everything. We do have ADA access provided from both the proposed driveway here on the eastern side. Again, a bump out for unloading and loading and parking. Access from Earl with a nice 5% maximum sidewalk. So again, we don't need railings and that, and kind of have an eyesore out there. No fence is proposed in the front yard, as our previous plans were submitted with a fence in the front. Again, we have a relatively large detention basin that will collect a majority of the stormwater on site and ensure that peak runoff rates do not exceed existing conditions. 4 parking spaces in the rear, 2-car garage is proposed, very similar to lot 1. And I think that really covers it. It's very similar to the previous application.
Just touching on, assume, as you testified last time, the setback helps, again, people with disabilities and providing the parking and removing that parking back and pushing it back from the front, have the front yard parking. And
that's correct.
Yeah, and as Mr. Graviano, and you testified that, in fact, under the ordinance, it says that with respect to the steep slope, it's not really a prohibition, it's a prohibition unless.
Yes, unless you have a.
Unless it's, necessary, as there's no feasible alternative. So, and there is no feasible alternative in this case.
That's correct. Again, steep slopes are kind of coming all across the site, so you wouldn't be able to build, even if you have to get into the site. So with them coming across the site, from top to bottom, you're going to have to cross them.
Okay. And with respect to, I know just like with the previous lot, this one also you added additional landscaping as a result of our last appearance?
Yeah, so let me focus on that for a minute. We have a bit more of a buffer on this one, considering that this one backs up to the backyard of a number of neighboring properties. So let me just zoom in. You can see a number of, sorry, this touchscreen's not great, but we have a very well-defined, I hope that's clear to everyone, all these dark, various shapes in here. These are all various plantings. We have trees, shrubs, a nice variety here. Some evergreens, it'll maintain that buffer in the winter, and some nice looking perennials that'll provide a nice aesthetically pleasing buffer to the neighbors to the west.
Great. No further questions. Mr. Bacci, again, you touched on a lot of that in the last presentation.
Questions from the board?
And I want to jump ahead to what Mr. Cohen indicated. No objection to working with the engineering department to provide additional landscaping to the rear of the property to help sound mitigation. We can work with Mr. Hatter and Colliers on that.
And fire department.
And fire department also.
Question from the board?
Mr. Bacci, how far would these homes be apart if they were approved?
Let me get that for you. So we have a side yard, the two homes that we were
Yes.
proposing. So you got a 24 and change foot side yard there. And let me just look at this one. About 13. So you have 13 on one side, 25 on the other.
And just so I
Sorry,
understand, sir,
43.
the size of these homes are part of the reason so they're ADA compliant, because you're going to have, the clients would possibly be in wheelchairs? Is that one of the
That's my
reasons?
understanding, but the inside of the home isn't really my expertise. I wouldn't want
Okay,
to
but I mean, that's
testify on that.
possibly one of the reasons.
Yes, we
Yes.
did.
Okay. I
Our
just wanted-
architect
I want
talked
to
about
understand.
that,
Okay,
yes.
no, I want to understand that. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Questions from the public? Hello, sir. Come on back up. Say your name.
Richard Bauman, 1219 Schmidt Avenue. I hope these questions are for you. First, for my personal concern, I reside, and I guess this is on behalf of all of Schmidt Avenue residents. I'm 1219. Where would that be on this illustration?
Where your house would be?
Yeah, 1219.
I
Just
honestly,
so I can have a proper visualization.
I don't know all the,
I understand. Take your time.
I mean, if you know what, I could give you you know what lot number you are?
Oh, let me look. I should be,
Yeah, so you're,
lot 8.
excuse me?
I should be lot 8.
Lot 8, so you're towards the rear of
Yes.
our property.
So on that map, where does lot 8 show? Apologize, I'm going to be a little greedy on that
I
one.
believe that would be back in this area.
Okay.
Let me zoom out again.
Look, take your time.
I'm not great with the touch screen.
Said 1219?
Yeah, 1219 should be the third house of, that's why I believe it's number 8.
Third from the
Yeah.
Parkway side?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you'd be right in this area.
Okay, that brings me to the 3 questions I have. The first is on this one, I don't see that fence for the animals that was spoken about, that does show up on the other
so
one, or is?
We have fencing here.
Oh,
You see
that
this
thick
darker
black
line
oh,
with the X's?
The thick black line?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mention that in my
Okay,
testimony.
yeah, it
Thanks
looked
for pointing
different.
that out. So, yeah, this line, I'll just go over it with my cursor.
Okay, thank you. In the resloping, regrading that's going to go on there, what kind of drop-off would all the residents on Schmidt Avenue see from that? Is there going to be like, a significant gap between the reconstructed area and, their homes, where there'd be a dangerous drop-off? Or is that going to be a smooth slope that's going to be constructed?
Well, if you look at, you see the grayed out
Yeah.
area here, so that represents, the closer the contours are together, that represents
The smaller the
very, very
difference.
steep. So we're softening it, we're keeping it here, immediately adjacent to you, softening it slightly over here. I would say, if you're talking immediately behind your property.
Yeah, and also, since, for all of Schmidt Avenue, what
yeah,
can they expect
all
to,
of
yeah, what would the
um,
residents expect as they go along that? I guess I get the least, yeah, I'm a winner, but,
Yeah, I would say minimal changes there, like nothing unsafe.
okay, people have children. I used to play throughout my childhood, so it's the kind of thing where, you just go down the hill and that's normal, but if there's significant reconstruction, we have to ask about that.
Can I follow up
sure.
on that? So again, if you see where the fence is, the fence happens to kind of protect this steeper area. I wouldn't say it's a dangerous area by any means.
Oh, yeah,
and
no.
It's going to be the same as existing for the most part, immediately adjacent to your properties. And then when the fence ends, it's much more shallow slope here after the fence is no longer there.
I'm trying to phrase out the other parts of the question. Thank you for the clarification on the fence, and the third one. Let's see. And again, while your colleague wasn't interested in saying anything that would, in his opinion, hurt his client, in your opinion, a house that's 3 times larger than anything in the surrounding community, you feel that fits in, or is that outside your field?
That's outside my field of
Okay,
expertise.
that was
Thank you,
number
sir.
3. Thank you.
Questions from the public? Hi, come on up again. Thank you.
So I'm
Again,
Linda
recite
Revnick.
your name and address.
Linda Revnick, 68 Earl.
Thank you.
So I know one of you fellas asked about whether or not the size of the home is that large because of the handicapped individuals. Well, I do know that Community Access has other homes that are handicap accessible, and they are not this size. So is that an accurate statement that you're making, or is that just a guess?
So I don't design the home itself. My focus is on basically, mostly on what's going around the home, the site itself, the grading, et cetera. So I didn't pick the size of the house by any means.
I understand. So there could be other, a smaller home put into that area that could be just as handicap accessible as this one. Is that correct?
It's outside of my, interior ADA compliance is outside of my expertise.
Okay. So then perhaps you didn't answer that question correctly. Okay. The other thing is the property on Schmidt, those properties, some of it is pretty steep in the back. Is there any thought of a need for a retaining wall behind those properties so that their backyards don't fall down into the grading?
No, so we're not touching the grading back here. You can see, so the darker lines is what is proposed.
Right, that's kind of where Ed's area would be.
Yeah, it's pretty minor changes, and I think I testified on the last application, what's typically considered acceptable and safe is a 3-to-1 slope, and we do not exceed that steepness.
Okay. Is there a reason why the properties are not parallel to Earl in that they're put on such an angle? So, for example, some of the way the angle is, the people that are living on Schmidt, where that top is, the point of the house, they're going to be like looking right into their backyard. So why is it all of the homes are parallel to Earl? Why are these on such an angle?
Yeah,
It's
it worked.
inconsistent with the neighborhood.
Yeah, it goes back to having the steep slopes on site. It works a little better for us on regrading and making all the grades work. If you tilt it and kind of have it, if you see this existing, again, these kind of half-tone lines here, try to kind of put it in line with those. Makes it fit the property, the existing condition of the property a little better, so you don't have to do as much improvement and regrading and steep slope disturbance.
So you're more concerned about the property instead of the neighborhood in the way the neighborhood is set up with the houses parallel to Earl Street?
Yeah, as an engineer, I'm really focused on, again, making sure it's safe from an engineering standpoint. Not aesthetics aren't quite my purview.
Mhm. Okay, so there's no concern about the way that they look in the neighborhood, it's just concerned about that property. So how far is the point at the top, how far is that to the property line?
12.78 feet, which complies with local ordinances.
That's pretty close, because their backyards are very small, so that's going to be a very short distance. Okay, well, most of my questions were answered. One thing you did mention, again, you mentioned that there's 4 parking spots. The other fellow said 6.
Yeah, so if I misspoke, I apologize. There's 4 striped parking spaces in the rear. You have room for 2 vehicles in this bump out here, and there's a 2-car garage. So this is curbing, just to make it clear, this is a curb, so you would come in and you have a garage door there.
And the other fellow said in the other property, there's 6 parking spots and 2-car garage. Why is there a difference between the two?
Now, let me explain once more. You have 4 striped parking spaces in the rear. You have room for 2 vehicles here. So that's 4 plus 2, 6, and then a 2-car garage. They're both the same. On the last application, I mentioned there was 4 spaces in the rear. These 4 striped ones here. And then room for 2 cars here and a 2-car garage.
And where is the driveway on this property?
It's on the downhill side as well.
So it's on the crest of the hill.
It's towards the bottom.
So that's the crest of the hill.
Okay.
Take my word for it. It's at the crest of the hill, which, again, from the cars coming up and down, could be an issue. Okay, that's my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the public? All right, Mr. Hill, your next witness? I'm sorry, someone? Oh, hello again, sir. Come on back up again. And it's I'm just acknowledging it's 9:07, so we really have to.
I'll make this quick. I apologize for not getting it through the first time. This may not be for you, or as you can see with Earl, with most of the residences on Earl and on Schmidt, they're much smaller lots. I understand this was purchased as 2 large lots. Why was they, even though the purchases of the single large lot, presumably they were left intact that way because they were seen as undevelopable at the time, why have they been allowed to stay 1 large lot to allow a large building like this, as opposed to being, now that it's being developed, chopped up into smaller, single, more normal house, compatible to single development things? You know, you put 7 houses along the same distance on Schmidt. You could put 7 houses here. I know that's not your plan, but if you divided this up the same way that Schmidt is divided, how large of a building would you be allowed to put on that kind of development? If you had, the same amount of space as the people say on Schmidt. If this was divided up.
I'm not sure if I quite,
Oh.
you're talking about a potential
Yeah,
combining them and subdividing them into small lots?
Yeah, once the single housing lots of Earl and Schmidt were put into small lots, this was left a large lot because presumably at the time, development was seen as financially unviable. You've purchased the facility as a lot. I guess the question is, if this was divided up the same way Earl and Schmidt are, which are a series of small lots, what would be the allowable size of a building on that? Because it wouldn't be this large, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure off the top of my head. It would probably be similar to the size of the houses on Schmidt Street.
Okay, sorry about that.
Is that more like a board question, why it's allowed to,
Is that more of a board question, why it's allowed to stay a single lot as opposed to being chopped up?
That doesn't sound like a
Okay, sorry.
All right, any other questions from the public? All right, your next witness, Mr.
Yes, I'd like to again recall Mr. Nicholas Graviano. Thanks, Mr. Bocci. To just for this application, again, provide the planning justification.
This is for 2024-03, right? You're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, the applicant, I was looking at lot and block.
just for the record, sir, you're still under oath?
Noted, thank you.
And you're still qualified from a
Yes.
couple of minutes ago. Thank you. So, Mr. Graviano, again, with respect to this property, very similar relief, provide again the planning justification.
Yes, In context of this property, it's the exact same relief that was requested with the last application. The applicant is requesting the 100-foot front yard setback, whereas 35 feet is required. The applicant is also requesting the steep slope disturbance in excess of 20%. As similar to the other application, there is no way to avoid the steep slope disturbance on this property. As well with the condition of the other property, the applicant's plan here allows for the loading and unloading of people with mobility challenges in the driveway, as well as a safe path of sidewalk to the dwelling. Similar to the other application, with respect to the steep slope request, it certainly could be granted under the C1 criteria. However, Chapter 170-2106 does allow for those disturbances, so the actual necessity for that variance could be debated, but we've put on the proofs anyway. With respect to the front yard setback, that could be granted under the C2 criteria. Furthering purposes A, G, and I, similar to the previous application, with no substantial impairment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance.
Thank you. No further questions of Mr. Graviano.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Question from the board? Question from the public? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other witness, Mr. Hill?
No, we have no further witnesses at this time. And
You'd like to sum up?
Well, I don't know if you want to have the public first or whatever.
I was going to have you sum up. and then
That's fine.
have the public.
Again, thank you again, and we appreciate the board, and we appreciate the public being here. Again, this is an application for a community residence. And I've heard me say it several times. They're permitted in all residential zones and dictated by single-family residential standards. It's very, very large lots, and again, we're seeking relief from two sections of the ordinance. And one is the front yard setback, and again, we feel that the benefits of granting the front yard setback certainly outweigh any detriment. Provides people, again, these are people with developmental disabilities, provides safe grade and the like, and it also pushes it back. There was concern with Earl. Well, now, there's a longer driveway, better area of ingress, egress, provides the additional parking, in the front, and a nice green space in front of the home. So I think certainly the justification, as Mr. Graviano said, under the C2 criteria for relief on both of these applications for front yard setback. And again, with respect to steep slope, as Mr. Graviano noted, technically, we don't even think we need that relief because the ordinance reads, it's prohibited, it said, unless new disturbance is necessary because there's no feasible alternative or it creates a hardship. So the ordinance allows, it doesn't say you can't do it. There has to be justification for that being no feasible alternative, and Mr. Bocci indicated there is no feasible alternative, and it's designed in that way. So I think the fact that we're supporting people with developmental disabilities with a 501c3 Community Access Unlimited that has a great footprint in Union County, providing housing for, again, adults with developmental disabilities is certainly something that's warranted here. And we appreciate the board's time and consideration of board professionals and the input from the public, and look forward to the board granting this application.
If I could ask you a question, Mr. Hill. As you know, the planning board is obligated to do a balancing test, and we try to be fair to both the public and the applicant. If we were to approve both of your applications, would you consent to the board revisiting it if we get complaints from the public?
Sure. That's certainly that. And I think there was a question about somebody, well, suppose they want to add on or things like that. We've come to the board, we're seeking relief. I mean, if we were seeking to change, put an addition on or change, we'd stipulate that we would need to come back to the board
If
for
any
that.
of these individuals come back with complaints, we're going to ask the client to come back. You understand that?
That's no issue. And we also, again, have no problem in working with the fire department, as your friend indicated, and also providing additional landscaping, working with the Township Engineering Department to provide that for additional buffer.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
No, thank you.
All right, public commentary. No public Commentary? Come on up. And again, just to revisit the form of order, this is where you get to make your own summations. There's no Q&A. Since it's 9:15, I'll ask you to short and sweet if you could. That'd be great.
It's unfortunate that many of our neighbors are away. They're on vacation, some are traveling. So others would have been here if it was a different day, so.
You need a drink of water, ma'am? Ma'am, are you okay?
No.
No, it doesn't sound it. Why don't you take a break? We'll have somebody else come up first.
Well,
Is
let
that
me
okay?
just go. So obviously, this is very stressful.
Right.
I've been living there since I was a little girl. And we played in these woods. And if it wasn't fit for building then, why would it be fit to build it now? It's kind of like shame on the town for putting all of this stress on our community for the sake of 8 individuals. That could be housed somewhere else. You're not only affecting the environment, the deer, the fox, the owls, the other birds that are there, but you're affecting all here who also have disabled individuals in their homes. The sound level is going to increase because all those trees are going to come down. And although there's all these professionals that say there's not going to be flooding, logically, if you remove, I wouldn't say that there's 30 trees there. There's got to be 50 trees in there. If you remove 50 trees and you reslope that, there's going to be runoff and it's going to come down. The other thing is the executive director said that they're trying to fit into the neighborhood. There is no way that 4,600 square feet homes fit into a neighborhood with 1,500 square feet homes. So I don't quite understand that concept. There's also safety issues as far as the way the driveways are set up. We live there, so we know what goes up and down. There's parking. Parking is horrendous. It's to the point where people are now parking in front of their driveways because there's no place to park. We mentioned this at the last time we met. Pulling out of Earl Street onto Oakland Avenue is a living nightmare. We've asked for the sign to be put back a few feet so that people on Oakland Avenue can see us come out. No one's helped us with that. So you're saying that there's 8 parking spots on each property. They might not always be used at the same time, but there's going to be vans and buses and whatever transportation needs to be made, as well as visitors. That's going to increase the level of traffic and the amount of cars going up and down the street, and it's already over the top. All of the trees have been ripped out of Earl Street and Oakland Avenue. That's increased the sound, the noise, and the traffic is so much. It's terrible. And then the effect that it's going to have on the people on Schmidt. That's not me, but it's going to definitely affect their backyards, and it's going to affect us on Earl Street. I'm at the top of Earl Street by the stop sign, and that's going to be more traffic. So you're negatively impacting our community. And every other place that I've seen Community Access put up homes, it's only been 1 home. This is 2 homes, and that's giving an undue burden to our little community. and the size of the home. So they say, that the applications say up to 10 in each home. The executive director last time said it's going to be 4 in each home. None of us here have the confidence that it's going to remain 4 in each home. And there is safety issues. There are many stories, and I don't want to sound mean, but there are stories of developmentally disabled individuals who have caused problems within neighborhoods.
Right, yeah.
I know we can't say that, but
Well, we
I'm
can't
just,
consider it.
I'm just letting
Say
you
it,
know.
We just can't consider it.
Yeah, I'm just letting you know how we feel. So that's definitely an issue too. It's gonna change the whole concept of the neighborhood and the fact that the homes aren't even with the properties the way the rest of us are. To us, it doesn't make sense. And it's kind of like shame on the town for selling these properties without notifying any of us. If you were going to sell it for $25,000, there's enough people in here that would have bought the property and kept it just a green space, because green space helps people's minds and just to see the animals. There's no way that deer are going to jump over those fences and be safe. They're not. And the runoff into the wetlands that's down there, that should be protected, even if it is small. It's unfair to the community, it's unfair to the environment. And honestly, for the sake of 8 individuals, this is going to cost $2.4 million to put this up. And there's other properties. I have friends on the other side of Union. They had some green area. Instead, the town is asking to put a little park in there. Why put a park there that's flat, that could have been used for this without all of this additional grading and removal of dirt and removal of trees? Why this property? It doesn't make any sense to us. And if it wasn't feasible for the last 100 years, why is it feasible now? And in the long run, it's going to cause a problem on Earl Street with the traffic, with those driveways, and it's going to cause problems for us. We appreciate the fact that Community Access is a great organization and what they do, but this is affecting us. So why do all of this for the benefit of 8 when you're negatively impacting hundreds of people who live there? So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Any other comments from the public? Yes, sir, in the green. Oh, okay. Hello again. Name the residence again, please.
Yes, Vita Bowman, 1652 Earl. Like I said earlier, I wasn't sure how the process goes, but I didn't find out about this until May, so I feel like I'm a little behind, but still, my concerns are still valid. I have children in the area, so the construction at the top of the street, there's a bus stop right there. So you have to think about how that's going to affect, the kids in the bus stop. It's already, when school is in session, it's a lot of congestion right there. So I'm thinking maybe you should really consider a traffic study if you're going to move forward with this. And I'm really just thinking about my quality of life. That's why I come out and I'm listening and I'm showing my concern to all of you. I'm hearing for the first time from Community Access. I didn't know it was 2 buildings, but now I know. So I just want to make it known that there are a lot of other people that could not make it tonight, but the meetings kept getting pushed back, change of dates. So that's really a lot of the citizens' concern is the quality of life that is going to be for those who live in the area. And my concern is safety as well. Because I'm not I'm not aware of the type of, if it's just people in wheelchairs or other disabilities, or what type of disability is it? I need more information. I was told it was a community meeting. I didn't know anything about it. I wasn't reached out to, I wasn't contacted, and I live right on the street. So I just want to make that known. Thank you for
Thank you
your
very much for your-
attention, and have a nice evening.
Yes, sir, come on up again.
Hello, I'll make it quick. Richard Bauman, 1219 Schmidt. What we have is a very laudable goal in the wrong location. I believe we're here because in 2019, somebody came across looking through for available space. They saw 2 large lots that were not in use and were able to get it at a very cheap, a bargain price. And they said, this is where we're going to put our plan, which will help people. And it's a good plan, but it's in the wrong location, both for the traffic purposes, for the fundamental of just the physical location, for the environmental conditions. The fact that we have to go through these kind of hoops where the building cannot even, in the most basic sense, face the road, it must be at a tilt to conform with the land. The potential for already choking traffic on Earl. I lived there all my life. I avoid Earl simply because you're at that top of the hill. You don't know what's coming up at you. And if there are people parked on the street, you just, it's not worth it. It's easier to go around or go through another exit because it's a blind down and boom. I've avoided that from a good chunk of my life, even when there's basic construction and I have to come up through Earl, going up that hill. You have no idea what's going to come at you, and you're looking at the sides, hoping there's, hey, if somebody shows up, I need to be able to move out of the way. This is a very noble goal, just in the wrong location, because somewhere along the line, somebody was looking at, there's a large lot that hasn't been used, and we got it dirt cheap. I wish them well with their goals, but they're in the wrong place, and as I said, the facilities here are 3 times the size of any house in the community. They don't match. They change the nature of the community. They kind of kill the privacy that everyone on both sides are used to by having those woods, the environmental concerns. For example, when this literally just came to me just now, we're talking about the catch basins and the runoff. Well, you've got one catch basin on top of another. So when there's a problem, one's already overfilled into one that's full, and then you've got a real big problem. So it's the kind of thing where it just feels that this is a very noble and laudable goal, just placed in the wrong place because of the chance of a cheap availability. I thank thank you for your time.
You're welcome, sir. Any public input from the public? Take it. And again, it's almost 9:30, so.
I apologize. It's also our lives. Scott Watson, 1641 Earl Street, fortunate resident. Earlier, we heard testimony that the 2 facilities are befitting to the neighborhood. I'm assuming that we're all constituents of this Valiant
You can assume
Township of
properly. We're all
Union?
volunteers here.
Excuse me?
We're volunteers and we live in Union.
Right, so we all live within Union. As we go home this evening, I want us all to consider, when we pull into our driveways, looking across the street and imagining the house across from your home being 3 times the size of yours, befitting to the neighborhood. Growing up on Earl Street, the hill that has been spoken about was nicknamed Suicide Hill, because when you're coming down on your bike, you couldn't see the bottom of the hill. Conversely, the car coming up couldn't see you. It was a cute nickname, but it was somewhat accurate. I ask, as a constituent of the Township of Union for 54 years, that you decline the 2 variances. I ask that in lieu of declining the variances, you at least do a traffic study to determine the feasibility of those 2 driveways and that location. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, you, sir, wanted to make you're good? Okay, thank you, sir. All right, any commentary from the board? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I recognize that our purview relative to responding to these applicants are specifically related to the variances being requested. But I'm given pause by some of the testimony that we've heard from the residents in the neighborhood, and I personally would feel better if we did get commentary from our township engineer relative to whatever impact the additional vehicles for these two properties might be relative to traffic. And as I mentioned earlier through my questioning, I want to see a condition on the approval that requires there be as many additional trees planted at the back of the properties as possible to provide sound buffer. I also question relative to the concerns regarding environmental impact, despite the fact that it's not part of the application, whether or not there might be openings in the fences that would allow access, egress through the fence for any transient wildlife that may be living or moving through the area. Thank you.
Any other comment?
Mr. Coleman, if I might respond to your question. I can tell you that under any circumstance, we would not require a traffic study for two group homes next to each other on Earl Street. We would not require that. That is not the appropriate use of resource.
Thank you, Mr. Hatter. Any other commentary from the board? Okay, be that as it may, I would like to address, before I make a motion, I ask for a motion on whether or not to approve this. I want to make it very clear to everyone here that we appreciate the position of the citizens who came to testify and also, or to make their presentation, also ask questions. I also appreciate the applicant and the lawyer, Mr. Hale. I thought that the witnesses who came in were asked very difficult questions, and I thought they responded as well as they possibly could. Here's the problem that we have as a planning board. Our job is to give both the public and the applicant a fair shake. And I will tell you, having spent 7 years on the planning board, most applications are pretty simple. Either it's yay or nay. This isn't one of them. It is complicated, and I don't doubt whatsoever the concerns of the public concerning, if I may, negatively impacting the community. I'm not doubting that whatsoever. But that doesn't end the analysis. We still have to be fair to the applicant, and especially when the applicant is an applicant that's going to house the disabled. We are bound by law, both federal and state, to provide our own housing for the disabled. The name of the law, or the name of the case is Mount Laurel, and we're bound by it. Whether we like it or not, we're bound by it. And we cannot give the optics that we are doing anything to adopt a not-in-my-backyard approach to housing. There's laws against that. With that said, however, I have to say that everything that we've asked of the applicant, we even have in the community outreach, and I know that we have testimony here that the one person didn't hear of the outreach, and that's obviously quite unfortunate. That doesn't take away from the fact that we have a balancing test to do, and we have to be fair to both. Now, I have asked Mr. Hale if, in exchange for approval of the variance, if he would agree to, as a condition, to come back to return to the board if we get a single complaint from any of you here. He said that would be no problem. So I don't think that approval or disapproval today is the beginning and ending of this project. It's just the beginning. And I want to make that very clear. I think that sometimes as a board we have to take a leap of faith, and it's not easy. And I do think too, if this was not a application for housing the disabled, I think that we would obviously look at it differently. But the fact of the matter is, it is housing for the disabled, and we do have an obligation to house the disabled, and that's just the way it is. Also, having both myself and members of the board have reviewed the transcripts. Now, thankfully tonight, the overwhelming majority of the questions and the testimony were very, very productive, I thought. The last meeting we had wasn't so much. And one of the things we have to be careful about optically is being accused of doing something that violates the Fair Housing Act and the laws against discrimination. We have to be very careful about that because we're not allowed to do either one of them. So what I'm going to do is this. I am going to ask for a motion to approve the application, both applications, one at a time, under the condition that if we receive a single complaint from any of the public on this project, we will be revisiting, we will be coming back, and we will be addressing the issue. So,
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question? When you say that a single complaint, what would be the nature of a complaint?
well, the
that would
construction
trigger-
complaint, any parts of the application, Mr. Hill has agreed as a condition of approval that they will come back.
Yeah, meaning it's, if there's issues with respect to violation of any of the terms and conditions of this approval, it wouldn't mean if it's a construction noise or something like that. We're talking
We're talking the
not
terms of
compliance
the
with-
application.
yeah,
And again,
not
this is
compliance.
just a leap of faith, and I understand that, I don't disagree at all with the argument that there's that it could potentially change the neighborhood, but we have to be fair to both parties.
Yeah.
And frankly, your client has been above and beyond the call of duty for giving us everything that we asked
Yeah.
for. So, but alternatively, I'm convinced personally that the individuals here have a point. But we also have to be fair to both parties, don't we? So, my view is, normally when we ask for approval, it's a straight-out approval. Here's a little different when I'm going to ask for approval with the condition that if we receive any complaints regarding the application moving forward, that we will revisit the issue, and we will be bringing your client back, and we will be addressing the issue
And
again.
again, related to the actual application, yeah,
Right.
again, not construction or things like that. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am? Pretty much the same thing that you've done here. Would you call up the engineering department and you make a complaint about whatever's going on over there, regarding the application? It wouldn't, it's a phone call, it's an email, whatever it is. I would recommend it be in writing, because like I said, they have agreed as a condition of the approval to revisit this issue if there's any problems down the road. And that, I normally don't go out of my way to do that. Normally it's either a yay or a nay, but I think that's the fairest thing to do for both parties. Would you come up here, ma'am, please? You have to get it, because this doesn't get you all the way over there.
Mr. Chairman, while we're waiting for that, for clarity, so as a result of the vote of approval tonight, there will be a resolution memorializing the agreement.
Right.
It will be a complaint relative to non-compliance with the resolution. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
So what does that mean? So
It
that,
means if you call our engineering department
Uh-huh.
and you say, those folks over at the home are not abiding by the, then we will bring them back.
Or when we're doing it, we didn't put all the trees under the plan that we were supposed to put. We destroyed trees, we said we weren't going to. We didn't put the fence in. We put a front yard fence in when we said we weren't going to do it.
Yeah.
If we don't comply with the terms and conditions of the resolution, we have to come back.
but then that's going to be too late, because they're already going to have ripped out the trees.
Well, like I said, what we're doing, what I'm suggesting is we just take a leap of faith. And I understand it's not perfect, and I get it, but that's our job on the planning board, to think of resolutions where we do what we think is best and fair. And I think, in my own view, is the fairest thing to do. I mean, they have already offered to come back if there's any problems down the road, and, I just don't know of a more fair way to do it, to tell you the truth.
And the timing of this, like, when is this going to all happen? Is there a way that they will not start to rip out the trees when the animals are still
That was asked during the
having?
hearing. Mr. Hale, I'm sure that you'll continue your community outreach?
Yeah, I mean, if there's issues,
Because the animals still have babies down there.
we're,
We'll address that. We will address that. All right. Any other questions? Anything else? All right. Let's take a motion that under the conditions, it's getting late, sir. You want to come up? Go ahead.
I just do want to say, and because this is part of the problem, we would be objecting to any development that's happening on this location. We understand the sensitive nature legally for the board, because this is a home for the mentally or physically disabled and all that. But any development that be happening at this locations, we'd be objecting to, on pretty much on these same grounds that.
I know, I
So
understand, sir.
I want
I
that
hope you
clear on the record.
We're bound by state and federal law in that regard, sir. All right. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve application 2024-02. Creative Property Management B 1803L1, under the condition that should we receive any complaints from the public regarding the application or any violation thereof, that the
Mr. Chair, could we just take a 2 minute, I've got my client calling me and I have to talk to for a second.
Okay, 5 minutes?
Yeah.
All right. I'll withdraw the motion for now, and we'll circle back in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Whenever you're ready. Yes. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, actually, my client, who's quite ill, was watching and was concerned about the condition. I clarified that it's a violation of the terms and conditions of the approval, meaning the site plan, we don't comply with the site plan, we don't comply with terms and conditions that were articulated here, as opposed, again, someone says there's a noise violation, there's garbage, and those are all code enforcement issues. And frankly, I think even without that condition, if someone embarks upon a project and doesn't comply, all you have to do is ask Mr. Manguso how many times people have gotten approvals for projects and then they don't comply. So it's,
I hope your client understood, we have been fair to everybody.
oh yes, I agree.
Everybody has been given every fair opportunity to address the board. It's a very difficult task to decide.
I
We're trying
agree.
to be as equitable as we can. We're trying to stay within the law. As you know, the FHA is a very unforgiving housing statute.
Yes.
We cannot treat the disabled any worse than anybody else, so.
Yeah. And council and I will work out the terms, conditions of that in the resolution. So thank you again.
All right, so I'd like to have a motion under the condition that if the board or the engineering department receives any complaints as to any potential inconsistencies with the application, that the board will approve the application 2024-02, Creative Property Management, B as in Bravo, 1803 L1. Have a motion, please? Joe?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
James Johnson?
Yes.
Michael Cohen? Michael Cohen?
No.
Jeffrey East?
Yes.
Alfred Miller?
Yes.
Patty Frazier?
Abstain, I was not present for original presentation.
James Bauer?
Yes.
Joseph Frame?
Yes.
Alkma Karan?
No.
Anybody else?
You didn't call my name.
Oh, sorry. Stephen Lee?
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. And for the record, would you please put the vote on the record, please, the vote for yea and for nay?
Yes.
How many yeas, how many nays?
One second. I have 2 nays. One, two, 5 yeas.
Okay. All right, Mr. Hill, under those conditions that we talked about, and I want to emphasize to your client, we will be holding your client to task if we receive any type of complaints about that, okay? So that's been approved for now.
Right.
All
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. With the same conditions that we did with application 2024-02, I also ask for a motion to move application 2024-03, Creative Property Management, B1804913, be approved with the conditions as set forth in the previous motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
James Johnson?
Yes.
Michael Cohen?
No.
Jeffrey East?
Yes.
Stephen Lee?
Yes.
Alfred Miller?
Yes.
Patty Frazier?
Abstain.
James Bauer?
Yes.
Joseph Frame?
Yes.
Alkma Karan?
No.
All right, would you please put the tally of the vote on the record, please?
6 yes, 2 nays.
Okay, thank you. All right, they're approved, and like I said, I hope we don't have to come back on here, but if anyone makes any complaints, Mr. Hill, we'll be back.
Right. Thank you very much, and appreciate your time, and have a great night.
Mr. Chairman, just a brief report on indulgence. The community outreach does not cease at this point. Considering that there was a lot of feedback, a lot of concerns, I think what is immensely important is to maintain that communication, maintain that transparency. There's obviously a lot of questions and concerns with regards to the timing of the construction, how long this project will take, things of that nature. And so I think the onus is definitely on the applicant to ensure that there is proper transparency and communication to the community, and that continues throughout the entire project. And it didn't stop after tonight.
That's not a, community access has always had that in their mind.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Allen. I
Lee.
join Mr. Lee's remarks.
Yeah. Thank you again.
Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Yep. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.